just by us doing it collectively, consecutively, habitually, right? And them, they just fall in line because this becomes the best method of doing what? Panther work. You know, we taking all the best notes from all the greats and putting them all together. I'm listening to y'all. Y'all giving me feedback from the South, from the East, from the West. I'm giving you feedback from the Northwest and all the information we're getting from our international contacts. And we're able to put together an operational version of this vehicle that has never been seen before. That's what I mean when I say the new Black Panther Party.
If I asked you to get a piece of paper and something to write with, and to make a numerical list of all the things that you would be willing to die for, how long is your list?
The Panther 48.
Willing to die for.
The Panther 48.
Willing to die for. How long is your list?
What is the tribal self?
The Panther 48.
The tribal self is what goes above the immediate acquaintances of the social.
Willing to die
The
for.
family, the people you know, live next door.
You would be willing to die for.
Tribal
The
self.
Panther 48.
I'm talking about those living, those yet unborn, and those who are the
How
ancestors.
long is your list?
So the connection with the ancestors is tied into the tribal self.
The Panther 48.
What does that mean? That means that the tribal self constantly reminds us
Willing to die for.
that we don't have the right
How long is your
to
list?
claim independence.
The Panther 48.
Peace and power. Once again, this is the Panther 48, and I'm sitting here. Today we have a special guest, but let me introduce the Panther 48 to you first. As a matter of fact, before I even do that, I'm gonna answer a question that a brother asked in our comments not too long ago on a past video. But the brother asked, "What is the Panther 48?" The brother asked me that. Brother Ward, you think you might want to take a shot at answering that question? Because the brother asked, what is the Panther 48? And I think he was trying to get some insight of whether or not the Panther 48 was something that he could join or that he could learn from. So in your words, Brother Ward, what is the Panther 48?
Panther 48 is basically a conglomeration of three brothers that were a part of the founding chapter of the New Black Panther Party in Dallas, Texas. That was pretty much the primary instrumental aspect of developing the original curriculum of the New Black Panther Party. That continue to do what we can from our different areas of expertise to help build on Panther ideology and provide that information to the people. But it is not a actual chapter. It is just it's a conglomeration of three comrades that came together in Dallas, Texas, that helped put a lot of the information together.
All right, brother, that was a beautiful explanation of what the Panther 48 is. And the reason I'm gonna tell y'all why we chose Panther 48. One, Panther, because as the brother just said, we all have Panther background. So a lot of the ways that we deal with life, the ways that we think, the way that we attack politics and philosophy comes from a Panther ideological perspective. We use the 48 because, and this is basic, but a very popular book in pop culture written by Robert Greene was the 48 Laws of Power. So popular that 48 became synonymous with the concepts of power. So it became synonymous with principles that allows you to get the power. So we use Panther 48 in the same context, just from a different perspective. We're saying that the Panther principles and ideology are synonymous with an individual or a group and following those principles in order to get themselves to freedom, to liberation, to first liberation of the mind, and then ideally liberation of the physical self. So we're saying that the Panther ideology has that power to lead you there. And that's why we chose the name Panther 48 to be 100% truthful and honest. Brother E actually presented the name to us to utilize. And we liked it, we accepted it, and we adopted it. And the Panther 48 is essentially a think tank. It is not an actual chapter. It is not a Panther faction. It is a think tank because we saw something, think tank, because we saw something lacking. We saw that Panthers of every generation had to reinvent the wheel. And we didn't like the concept of Panthers having to reinvent the wheel, some from ego, some basically because they just didn't know. So we said if we create this YouTube channel and document this information, then brothers and sisters wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel anymore. They could just go to this information and study. And the Panther 48 is not limited in our thinking and our understanding, or even in our criticism, just as the brother that we have brought on the show today. The brother that we brought on the show today left a comment on a previous episode of ours, really a link to one of his videos. We went and watched it, liked the information the brother was giving, even though the brother wasn't in 100% agreement with what we said, but we enjoyed and liked even the way, not only the information the brother presented, but how he presented it. He didn't come in an attack mind state. He didn't come with a negative mind state. He just came presenting what he felt would be beneficial for people that trying to walk in this Panther legacy to learn and understand. And essentially, that's the Panther 48, and that's the Panther 48's way of doing things. The three brothers that make up the Panther 48 is myself, Brother Syke. I'm calling out of Dallas, Texas, former chief of staff of the founding chapter of the New Black Panther Party. I got my brother Robert Ward Williams with me, calling out of San Diego, California, former chairman of the founding chapter of the New Black Panther Party, current chairman of the San Diego chapter of the Black Panther Party. I meant former chairman of the founding chapter of the New Black Panther Party, and current chairman of the San Diego chapter of the Black Panther Party, and current national chief of staff of the People's Black Panther Party, headquartered out of Atlanta. I have Brother E with me, who is another member of the Panther 48, who is a former Minister of Information of the founding chapter of the New Black Panther Party, and current Panther 48 Emeritus Minister of Information. The brother is always our Minister of Information. And our special guest that we have on us tonight is Brother Magnetik Allah, calling out of Seattle, Washington, current member of the New Black Panther Party, Seattle chapter. And we're gonna dig into the brother's brain and thinking and mind to go deeper into some of these Panther concepts and ideas. We're gonna make the Panther cake for y'all. Brother War, I'm gonna turn the mic over to you, and let's get it.
Hey, real quick, Comrade Magnetik, do you know somebody named Naima X? Did you invite anybody else in?
Yeah, yes, sir. I invited the brother, indeed. Nehemiah. Yeah.
Okay, Nehemiah, I apologize. I'll let him on real quick, and we just have him jump in.
Mm-hmm.
So, in building real quick, basically,
let's introduce the new brother that just came in first. Brother
okay.
Wall, before we get started.
All right. Nehemiah X.
Yes, peace, Black Power.
All right, Black Power. Comrade, tell us a little bit about you.
All right, I'm Nehemiah X. I serve as a member with the New Black Panther Party. Do the general education class, new members class, and some other things. Just here staying in accordance and alignment with my brother Magnetik, who also gives the political education. So I'm here to support the brother.
All right, gotcha. So Comrade Magnetik, kind of like what you was getting ready to talk to us about as we was getting started. Tell us a little bit about your background. You know, how did you get introduced into the Panther ideology and the struggle?
Okay, first I want to say peace, Black Power and Refinement, and I want to say I honor all of the New Black Panther Party members and students who have worked tirelessly to reconstruct the mighty vehicle of movement, the New Black Panther Party. Okay, if the movement is going to make moves, then it needs a vehicle, and it needs to be a vehicle that's designed to get us all the way to where we need to go. That vehicle that moves us and directs us is the party, you know? So I just wanted to say that real quick. All right, but to tell you about myself, like I said, my first encounter with the Black Panther Party was when that was my preschool that I went to. What they now call Head Start was called Liberation School first. What it was a collection of students who were studying probably early childhood development, and we needed our own preschool. So they went and got those people, pulled them aboard, and they became our teachers in Liberation School. So when I saw King Kong, the Panthers took me. First time I went to the Seattle Center here, which is with the rides and stuff, the Panthers took me. They took us swimming, They took us on field trips, everything we needed. They fed us and they educated us. Most importantly, they loved us. So that was my first experience with humanity and community, you know, the Black Panther Party. And those people whom were there in that class, that liberation class, I know to this day, and we're still tight, you know. They still had that Panther in them, and wherever they went and wherever we saw each other, we had that link with each other from liberation school. So that's the foundation of my Panther experience. Now, as I went on, as you probably know, you know, a lot of things began to decline in the, I was born in 73. A lot of things that were strong in the late 60s, in the very early 70s began to decline. So my father was from Los Angeles, okay? So he was involved he's from Watts specifically. So he was involved with the Slausons and the Watts riots and whatnot and everything. So he got incarcerated based upon that. He got into the nation and was able to clean himself up, make himself into a better man, you know, and become Brother Ronald X. Okay, so that was down in Los Angeles. You know, my mother's from up here. So my mother ended up going down there, okay, by way of the nation, trying to get closer to something that was, you know, something that was righteous, some Black consciousness. Then she met my father, okay? They met in the nation. They met in the nation. So my brother was born, then I was born. Some things happened in Los Angeles with the mosque. I'm sure you know what happened, you know? At 27 and whatnot, things changed. Then let me tell you how they explained it to me. They said there was a Watts mosque, and they had a food bank, and they had men's class and women's class, and it was communal. Then it changed from that, and they moved everybody from the Watts mosque to 27. And all that communalism they had, which could have eventually neutralized the gang stuff, all that got moved to 27. So my dad became dissatisfied. He's from Watts. He saw it being cleaned up. Now they moved that operation out because they wanted more money at the mosque. So he moved on to the Black Panther Party, you know? And, you know, all the things that were in the nation that people went there for, Black nationalism, liberation theology, Pan-Africanism, a lot of that was getting stripped out of the nation. So people who came there for that, they saw that more in the Black Panther Party. See, and my father was one of those people. Fortunately, he had the refinements from the nation, and he was able to bring a lot of that and share a lot of that. He had a lot of the organizing methods from the nation. He was able to bring a lot of that from the nation into the party, you know, and get further than some people were able to get. So yeah, that's kind of my foundation. As I got older now, of course, we heard the Huey P. Newton story, the Hollywood Panther story. Yeah, we like that because from the West Coast, Huey got juice like that on the West Coast. However, as I got older and I began to, you know, I joined back up with the nation, met Dr. Khalid and stuff. I said, wait a minute now. There's some stories that people have been telling us that are not right and exact. Because I also met Kwame Ture, okay, when I was in the FOI. And I came as an FOI member to help them bring Kwame Ture here. You see what I'm saying?
In Seattle?
In Seattle, indeed.
Okay.
Indeed, to Seattle, to our high school. It was a very powerful event. But through my conversations with Kwame Ture, what I began to find was that the Panther story that I had been told about, you know, where it started, Huey and Bobby, that was not the real story. You see, what I had been told about the relationship between the Nation of Islam and the Black Panther Party was not correct. Was not correct, because he was invited on stage by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and honored. I mean, they say the messenger didn't like nationalism. And why would he invite the world's #1 nationalist on stage and tell the people at Savior's Day to watch this man, listen to this man, and direct the FOI to protect him? See,
and that's Kwame Ture? You're saying yes, Kwame Ture, right? Okay.
Indeed, yes, sir. So, you know, things got a little diluted around this time and whatnot, you know what I mean? So I'm glad that I met Dr. Khalid, because he had the teachings of the original nation, the nationalism, the liberation theology, the Pan-Africanism, you know what I mean? He had all of those things still intact. I'm glad I was able to meet Kwame Ture, because he kept a version of the Black Panther Party in the AAPRP that had all those things, the nationalism, the liberation theology, the Pan-Africanism. And so we could see a living motto of it. I appreciate Dr. Khalid because when I saw the new Black Panther Party being reconstructed, those things that I'm gonna say white liberals helped to take out of the Panther Party, he put them back in the Black Panther cake. Nationalism, liberation theology, Pan-Africanism. This is why a lot of us left the party at a certain time and the party split. Because one group wanted to be socialist and Marxist, one group was with the nationalism, liberation theology, and the Pan-Africanism. So we kind of have a conflict of interest here. So when I saw Doc doing that, and I saw that he had the qualifications, because he studied theology, so he could pick the black parts out of it. Right? He'd been to Africa. He's with Idi Amin, you know, he had sat with Gaddafi, right? So he's, you know, very thorough on the Pan-Africanists. He was with Minister Louis Farrakhan. He studied the works of Malcolm X, so he understood nationalism well, saw that he was qualified to integrate those three into one, you know? And now we have a party standing behind those and expanding and presenting that to our people, you see? So when I look at the Panther we're looking at, I'm thinking of what I call the Panther-oo, okay? When we say pan, that's the unification, right? That's when some things come together, right?
Right.
Then we have the TH, that's Tahuti. And then you have Heru, right? So when we unite the intelligence of Tahuti and Heru, that's the ideal Panther. That's the ideal Panther. He has the strategy, he has the intelligence and the guidance of Tahuti, but then he has the warrior spirit, the thoroughbred in him, like Heru, to get it done. Heru is the first hero. You see, they talk about the hero of 1,000 faces. I talk about the Panther of 1,000 faces, and has moved through more than 1,000 places.
Real quick question. Part of what you were saying, you said when Khalid came, I couldn't tell if you were saying when Khalid came into the new Black Panther Party, it was being, you said it moved, or you talking about, you said it moved in two directions, or were you talking about the East Coast,
No,
West
I'm
Coast,
talking about
the third
the
division?
Yeah, I'm talking about the
third
first.
division. Okay.
Indeed, right.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to say, I don't know a lot of the stuff that happened between the leadership of the new Black Panther Party and Aaron Michaels and Dr. Khalid. I really don't. I was not there, family, and I would be a liar and a hypocrite to say I knew about that.
Okay, got it.
There's other people that can speak on that, you know, that we can probably call to the table, but I don't really know a lot about that. I came to the table because I was asked by other mechanics who were fixing the vehicle if I would lend my expertise into fixing the vehicle. And I said, oh, no problem. Let's get the car back on the road, you know?
That's great. Let's stick on that.
Yes, sir.
One question I do want to ask you, because see, some things you bring up, I think our listening audience definitely need to know. For instance, when you talked about the liberation schools, a lot of people don't know the importance of that, as well as how a lot of the programs and operations that the Black Panther Party was doing were co-opted by the United States government in a sense to create codependency. So when you speak on the strength that the liberation schools had and the influence that it had on you, to me that goes into what you talk about when you say the Panther cake. A lot of us, especially I was speaking specifically for myself, did not have that ability. We were not in a position where we were gifted enough to have a liberation school in our works and our ranks. So we didn't have that upbringing. So when we came into the Panther Party, for instance, like myself, when I came into the new Black Panther Party in Dallas, Texas, that specific element, I would say we may have had we did have a couple of members that came out of the Nation of Islam who had that level of discipline, but the primary apparatus in terms of how we operated was not built around that level of discipline. That level it was education, but not necessarily that specific level of discipline. So when you speak on that within the ingredients of the Panther cake, that struck a powerful chord to me, because when we talk about that, you're talking about some aspects in regards to your upbringing and teachings, especially when you bring up Dr. Khalid, that in Dallas, Texas, we didn't necessarily have that privilege of dealing with Khalid on that level. So if you can just speak a little bit more in regards to the influence Khalid had on you throughout the nation. In terms of, you mentioned to me at one point he came to Seattle and dealt with some gangbangers. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. Well, I had saw Dr. Khalid in tapes. You see, we would hear him on Public Enemy, Ice Cube, etc. We'd be listening to that. So finally, it's like he was coming to Seattle, right? And it was a gang truce that was being organized, right? Basically, and I was like, okay, yeah, cool. Basically, a lot of the work he was doing in Los Angeles, you know, and I was directly already involved in doing stuff like that here in the city, because, you know, that's my background. Where I come from, it's a lot of gangs and stuff around in the area. And I was, you know, able to reach a lot of these brothers and, you know, build a relationship with a lot of these brothers. So we invited all these folks, the Bloods, the Crips, the BGDs, all the different gangs to come see Dr. Khalid. Not only did we invite all the gangs, we invited the Al-Islam brothers, the Kemetic brothers, Pan-Africanists, all the different types of folks who supposedly didn't get along, okay? Because this was supposed to be a unity rally, and it was at a place called Holly Park. So the police came to us, they said, you'll never be able to pull that off with all of those different people who don't get along together. You're gonna need our help. And we were like, no, we don't. Thank you, because y'all started most of this shit. We don't need you right in the middle of it. Thank you, but no thank you, man. So, you know, but the way we were able to put together the detail and lay things out, we were able to secure the building and make sure everyone was safe and everyone felt safe coming, considering all the different entities that were coming here. You understand what I'm saying? They said the king is the one who's able to maintain the peace. So, you know, we was holding that role down that day. So it was very successful. A lot of the so-called gangs who thought they could not sit in one room together and actually listen and build, they were actually there listening and building, began to see each other more as brothers. The Al-Islam folks, they was kind of on some BS, but by the end of the night, Dr. Khalid, he had kind of smoothed things out. What I was able to see is what I call like divine diplomacy. You know, divine diplomacy, when somebody can reach into people's hearts using their sincerity and clarity to produce a new reality. You know, it's like there was a blacktism that happened and people got washed of a lot of the bullshit, you know? And because of that, Doc got a real good name in the city, a really good name in the city, man. People was like, wow, that man is amazing. It's like a miracle, because it's something that we all wanted to see happen, but we had never saw it. And we saw it right in front of our eyes at a place where a lot of gangbanging used to happen in the city, you know? So that was like a miracle. So people said, man, this man, he's really working with something. And, you know, I bring that up, y'all, because sociology is a very important component to what we're doing. And the fact that Dr. Khalid has a PhD in sociology and he applied that to working with gang members and young people qualitatively says why he had so much more success in what he was doing on the East Coast, on the West Coast, down South, you know, up here in the Northwest. You see what I'm saying? He had a psychological profile of who he was talking to. And let me tell you how I know that. This man knew logistics like first nature. He ran down the city of Seattle to us, how it was founded, how the black people got here, how many black people are college educated. It was amazing how much he knew about the city, the history of the city that I did not know. Automatically, I knew I had to listen to this man because he had some navigation stuff and some research materials that we did not have about the place we lived in. Hey, they told me, knowledge is the lost found property of the civilized. Pick it up wherever you go. So I started picking it up. He's dropping it, I'm picking it up, you know. And so the next thing, he comes back up and he's like, hey, bro, who want to roll out with us to do this gang truce in Oregon? You know, he had come back. And I was like, hey, I want to go. But everybody else, about 5 other brothers, stepped back. And I was like, who would miss that? Because we were hearing about all of it going on in Los Angeles. Who's gonna miss that if you can do that with Dr. Khalid? So 5 other brothers stepped back. So I saw there was some weirdo shit going on. So I was like, man, I absolutely want to go. So the detail that I saw the brother do down there in a place we had never been was so thorough. I never saw no detail that was that thorough, no security detail that thorough, you know, not even close. 2 blocks out in every direction. He had cars stationed. It was absolutely outstanding. Nobody was gonna get in there. Nobody was gonna get in there. And then once again, the same effect that he had at Holly with the gang members he had in Oregon. Same recipe: nationalism, liberation theology, Pan-Africanism, but a high degree of Black sociology and psychology, you see, that he knew how to apply and work very good. So that's number 2. Number 3, then he comes back and he comes to a religious facility, Seattle University. Now, Seattle University is known to be the home of the Jesuits. This is where they train Jesuits. These are their sharpest religious minds. Is that right or wrong? Right?
That's what they say.
They got the sword of Christianity, man. So they went up against the sword of Islam that day. And Dr. Khalid came in with 2 stacks of some of the biggest books I've ever seen, family. And I was like, Doc, what is the use of? He said, oh, those are intimidation tactics. Yeah, that's just, hold tight, bro. When Dr. Khalid finished with these guys, it was 3 of them, it was 1 of him. One of the guys switched sides. He whooped him so cold with liberation theology, Black liberation theology, so cold, he switched sides and said, I agree with you, that God is a man and not a spook, and sat over on Dr. Khalid's side. So, these are like 3 different instances where I saw him, using nationalism, liberation theology, and Africanism to be successful in 3 different arenas. I was like, wow, this is pretty impressive. The 4th time when I met the brother, I guess he had been talking with the sister who is the interim minister here. Her name was Sister Charlene. And she told him about my work as a rapper and what I was doing. So we had a private meeting, and he made sure that she gave me, number 1, the supreme wisdom. He was like, here, Dr. Khalid wants you to have this. And I was like, oh, thank you. Oh, I had been there for a while. Nobody gave that to me. So I was thankful for that. So I get to the hotel, and the brother, he asked me if I would be the student minister here in Seattle. And I was like, no, sir. And he was like, well, brother, why you say that? I said, well, because there's a lot of confusion going on, and I don't walk into confusion, And then we started talking about me rapping, and he pretty much told me. I said, hey, man, these guys told me to stop rapping. They said the rapping, we shouldn't be rapping, and the minister don't want us rapping. He said, no, that's wrong. Don't ever stop rapping. We need y'all to keep doing what you're doing, the way that you're doing it and teaching, because the people listen to y'all more than they listen to us. Don't stop rapping, bruh, and let's stay in touch. So, we tried to stay in touch as much as we could, but, a lot of stuff going on in the 90s, man. You know how the 90s was, but that was pretty much my dealing with Doc, So from then on, I would just be kind of observing the things that was going on, and a lot of things happened in my life too that took me in different directions and whatnot. So that was my workings with Dr. Khalid. A couple other meetings that I sat in where he was there and he was doing checks and balances, but that was pretty much it.
Okay. Now, one thing I'd like you to expand on a little bit is when you talked about with the 3rd development, saying that within the nation, you said that the Black nationalism part was getting removed, and so the replacement was the Black Panther Party, and a lot of those elements were found in the Black Panther Party. Now, do you feel that was the case with Huey, or more so on the East Coast branches? It's just expound on that, because my experience has been more that on the East Coast, not the West Coast.
Okay, you're saying the East Coast was what? What do you?
To me, the East Coast were more culturally in tune. Majority of them had African-centered names.
Yes,
they was just more on that. And what I found was on the West Coast, because of what happened between some of the stuff that was taking place with the US organization and the Black Panther Party, it created a wedge, which caused Huey. I would say that fraction to kind of pull away from that, to the degree to where it became a distasteful thing to them. So it caused them never to grow to the level that they should have grew, as it applies to that. But I look at that as being a direct FBI involved tactic. to
Right.
prevent the national from being there. But I just kind of wanted to get your take on that.
Well, you know, the way I examined it, when I fully examined it, because I did some research and I began to look at people like Huey P. Newton, who was processing in the NOI. I began to look at people like Bunchy Carter, who was a minister in the NOI. I began to look at people like Eldridge Cleaver, who was also a minister within the NOI, within the prison ministry. So I said, well, man, there's obviously was some connection. So, and I would go as far to say that if there were not the split between Malcolm X and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that pretty much the Black Panther Party would have been like it's like the arm wing or of the NOI. And I say that because all of them were pretty much students of Malcolm. So if they didn't split when Malcolm split and go the way they went, this, you know, that's kind of what we're looking at. Now, I know that a lot of people don't like a lot of the, you know, principles and stuff of the Nation of Islam and whatnot, but I'm gonna say this. There's the nation you see now, then there's the original nation, which is the first nation that's mentioned in student enrollment, the original nation, which includes all of our people. So when we start talking about the original tenets, which were the nationalism, which came from Marcus Garvey, the liberation theology, which came from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the Pan-Africanism that was in it that also came from Marcus Garvey, a lot of that was pushed out because different influences came into the nation to pull it in different directions. These are people with money now that can create influence with their money in their city and pull things in different directions. In Arabic, they say makar, meaning to slowly turn something. Like it's a shish kebab. You're slowly turning it and cooking it. And it's slowly turning into something what else, you see. And it was a slow process because once they saw, man, think of a pantheon that includes the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Minister Louis Farrakhan, the father, Muhammad Ali, let's see, who else? John Ali. That's a pretty powerful pantheon, man, when you put all them people together and who the people they're connected to. So some people call him the cracker as a derogatory remark, but we call him the cracker because he knows how to crack our unity, put cracks in our unity. And because there's cracks in our unity, some things that are good can seep out, but things that are negative can seep in. And some of those things that seeped in were this false form of socialism that didn't even work in Europe, right? Didn't work anywhere they took it to. This false form of communism that didn't really work anywhere they took it. In fact, it crashed in Europe. And it never really blossomed in Europe at all. The only place it jumped off was the place where the original people was, places like Cuba, places like Eritrea, where we saw real scientific socialism. So, but they tried to sell us a version of it that didn't even work for them. You see what I'm saying? And this is what seeped in through the cracks of the cracker into the nation, into the Black Panther Party. These same influences. In fact, I was told by Kwame Ture that at a certain point, the socialists came to Huey, to Fred Hampton, and gave them a certain amount of money to pull them away from the direction Kwame was going in, which was towards what? Towards Pan-Africanism. He was going to meet with Sekou Touré and Nkrumah. So if things would have went like they were supposed to go, the Black Panther Party would have been instrumental in holding together the now liberated countries in Africa that experienced so many coups because they had no national military or army or national glue to create that. That's what the Black Panther Party was supposed to become. And the AAPRP was very instrumental in a lot of that work, but this is kind of the natural road of advancement that it was supposed to go, the PANTHER, right, to the PAN Africanism. You know what I mean? Gotcha. But when people started taking things out of the vehicle and putting stuff that does not belong in the vehicle, it became somebody else's vehicle. And now they hand it back to us, the shit we used to call Panther, and it's a rainbow car, a rainbow coalition car. When you separate black, you get the rainbow. When you combine all the colors, you get black. They separated it. They took our students somewhere, right? They took our nationalists in one direction. They took our liberation theology people in another direction, right? They took our Pan-Africanists in another direction. They took the socialists and the Marxists. They were all involved in one party and separated it into what's now a big mess of rainbow, to the point where you have something called Black Lives Matter, BLM. But the first BLM was what? The Black Liberation Movement.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Right.
So it's like
Way
a
different.
remix.
Way
It's
different.
like a remix, a bad remix. They didn't let Vanilla Ice remix Rock County. Come on, man. What? No. They let McDonald's make gumbo. No, not my gumbo. So, you know, we're at the point, family, I think you see it. I'd like to ask y'all a question, though. I see two things. I see, can we all agree that there's a Panther movement, and it's different from the new Black Panther Party? That the Panther movement is different from the new Black Panther Party. Can we agree upon that? Because when I say the Panther movement, I see a lot of people who are moved of all colors, of all different type of sexual orientations too, by Panther ideology. They're moved, their minds are moved, their bodies are moved, etc. Now, that's one aspect, okay? Those are the people that are moving around it, you know, that's the larger aspect. But then when I start thinking about the new Black Panther Party and the members, okay, not the movement, but the members, I see people who are willing to make a certain commitment to an ideal and agree upon an ideal and make a commitment to that ideal and lay down smaller things to gain something greater. Is that what, are we talking about the same thing, family?
Well, this is where we have to come in. At least let me give you my experience. Like
Come
you
on.
said, you came into the new Black Panther Party in 2006, right?
The new Black Panther Party?
Yeah.
No.
When did you, the new Black Panther Party?
The new Black Panther Party, I just recently became a part of it because the brothers asked me to come in, as a fellow mechanic to repair the vehicle,
So
man, and get it back on the road.
How recent is recent?
I'm gonna say like a year and a half, bro.
Okay, got you. All right. I made some misunderstood when you was talking about 2006.
Okay.
So basically, the thing that we saw going on with the new Black Panther Party, and this is one of the stuff that Panther 48 touch on. This is what I'll let my other brothers expound a little bit more on that. Is that through, and it may kind of come off wrong because people don't understand the background. But in times when we said that Khalid Muhammad was the worst thing that had happened, it had to do with the fact that during when his ability to be able to change the dynamics and grow the new Black Panther Party in the direction that it needed to go, he was I know a lot of people don't want to agree to that, but I say he was assassinated before that happened. So the thing is when he came into the organization and became the national chairman, what had happened was literally you had people following him from the Nation of Islam who came into the organization. The problem that we saw, and again, this is just my interpretation, the problem that we saw was people were expecting the new Black Panther Party to be their spiritual guidance, whereas the new Black Panther Party, in terms of how it was operating, was more or less it was a community activism organization. There was not a spiritual element operating in there. And so when Khalid came in, he basically came in and it turned into a Nation of Islam, as opposed to dealing with the community element in doing the work. And so what we had was, when he got assassinated, you had people emulating his speaking, but not what the work he had done throughout the continent. And there was
personality code.
It became exactly. And so people were grabbing for positions of power, but didn't know where to take the vehicle.
Okay.
And so the organization, and this is again my opinion, went in disarray because you went from this powerful figure that did not get the opportunity yet to move it in a direction that it could have went in, to all of a sudden it was more or less trying to maintain or keep it going. And trying to keep it going, you had too many different people trying to pull it in different directions, and some of the things that were lacking in the structure was the required training in order to even be a Panther. And these are one of the things that I was fighting for, is because, in other words, basically, you was able to come into the organization without going through a training process to confirm that you even fit to be an organization. It was more
That's
about
what I
loyalty.
mean. Yeah.
It was more about loyalty than it was about an actual soldier who is actually committing themselves to a process. And we saw that degrading and degrading and degrading. And so I don't get us wrong, that was the part that we emphasized as Panther 48 in terms of, hey, what happened? Because those standards were in place, and those standards started degrading, and the organization kind of became more of a protest movement.
And you know, as a that's a really good evaluation, friend. I just want to say that to you. I thank you for that information, but I ain't gonna say but. I'm gonna say that's what I was talking about when I say the movement as versus the members, because there's a lot of people who call themselves a part of the Panther movement, and as people who are members, yourself, myself, Brother E, Brother Nehemiah, we do not want to waste all of our time babysitting what the movement is doing, because these are not people who have truly made a commitment. Number one, they don't have the proper ideological, training to really be a member. So we don't want to waste our time chasing and putting out their fires. We want to let people know, hey, that's the Panther movement. We appreciate that. If some of you guys want to come amongst us and learn to get to a higher level within your movement, you can become a member. You see what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
And then we can really qualify you and not be looking at you like, who the fuck are you, man? And what the fuck are you doing? Because that's how, I know how I was trained, family. And I know how I was trained to do certain things by certain people. And when I see people not doing that, I can't get mad at them because maybe somebody didn't teach them. So that's what I'm saying is the difference between the movement, which is worldwide, family. I know people from Africa who were tremendously moved by the party, man, by the books, by what they saw the party do, by and actually used that to take power in their country, and is still empowered to this day. So the movement part is very powerful. However, the part that's sloppy, and it's a sloppy copy, we need to let somebody else be responsible for that, man, and not take responsibility for all the people that's doing stuff so supposedly in the name of the Panther, and make a clear defining part. No, these people are party members. We know who these people are. We don't know who these people are. These random communist, socialist people that the communists and the socialists prop up and call them Panthers. You know what I'm talking about. You know who they are. Saying all kind of stuff. And it ain't no nationalism in it, no liberation theology, and no Pan-Africanism in it. And see, one thing I also like to discuss is the Panther lens. Being able to look at news through the Panther lens, being able to look at how we were looked at through another lens, and that way it didn't look right. The Hollywood lens that they gave the Panther Party, that hurt us a lot. And they did that for a minute. Now we're getting to a point where we can say what was true, what was not true, what ingredients were added, what ingredients were original to the cake, and this is a very powerful. One thing I like about Huey, he talked about the power of definition, right? He said that we must define what this is. He said power is the ability to see a phenomenon, right? Define it, then make it move in a desired direction. That's what we're doing with this vehicle called the New Black Panther Party. Someone else altered the direction. We like, hey, bro, hey, sis, hey, we got to get this back on the road, or you can't drive no more. You know what I mean? Just saying. And this is not criticism towards anybody that did anything. No. This is some of us, there's misuse and there's abuse. Okay, misuse is when you kind of don't know what you're doing and you do something wrong. Abuse is when you know what you're doing and you keep doing it and you're getting something out of it. See, we have to be able to separate the two. I see more misuse because the conversations that I have, I don't think people have really saw a fully functional version of the party.
Right.
That can carry out really seeing it and witnessing it. I'm a product of it. My aunt was the lady who they named the clinic after, Carolyn Downs. So I saw her and my father go to the university and recruit the students to become the doctors and nurses who worked in the clinic. Yeah. We knew Carolyn Downs. Her family knew my family. And that clinic is still here to this day. You see, so they had some serious operational unity to be able to pull some stuff off like that. And that motto of the clinic became the motto for all the clinics. When they wanted to set up a new clinic, they sent them to Seattle, talked to them about the operations, and then they went back and they set up other clinics. Bobby Seale would tell you that Seattle had the best programs because, you know, they were real about operational unity, not just, you know, observational unity, right? It's looking like you together, but you can't really hold nothing together and be consistent day to day, you know, play by play and day by day, week by week, you know? Even when the parties start to come apart, family, when Huey went sideways and got on cocaine, the programs that were here were so strong, Seattle adopted the programs and made them a part of its budget. Head Start, the free breakfast program, the free lunch program, Seattle adapted. Yeah. You know, and when the police wanted to come in and shoot up the Panthers here because the Panthers had done such good community work, the mayor said, oh, absolutely not. No, this is not Chicago, this is not New York. Are you crazy? This is not LA. No, you're not, But that's based upon the diplomacy and people appreciating the utility. It was white people that came to the Black Panther Party free breakfast program here, bro. Asian people that was hungry. And will tell you that was one of the first good breakfasts they ever got. You know, so yeah.
I want to Panther back instead of piggyback. I want to Panther back on something Brother Magnetik and Brother War said a little earlier, and then Brother War, Brother E wanted to come in on the conversation. He had something to say, but the thing that I wanted to address, because if you think about this, if you actually allow some critical thinking to go across what the Brother Magnetik said earlier about the difference in the Panther movement and then the difference in the Panther Party, the membership, he's right, because the Panther ideology, the Panther, let me say more likely, the Panther culture, the image of the Panther did move a lot of people that didn't necessarily follow the principles that was established. And it's ironic that the brother came on today and said all of these things, because all of these things sounds like the conversations that we was having in the early and mid 90s about where the Panther Party needed to go. When we was having those fights in the headquarters that we discussed in the last video. You know, the things that we talked about, me and Brother E, especially when we was fighting the rest of the chapter, was that you allowed the enemy to dissect and separate Malcolm, because the Panther Party claimed to be the ideological heirs of Malcolm, and the U.S. claimed to be the ideological heirs of Malcolm. But both groups took, when I say the U.S., I'm talking about the United
States. Yeah.
So both groups took separate aspects of Malcolm's philosophy and went the opposite direction. The Panther Party went more with the militancy. When Malcolm talked about having gun clubs and us defending ourselves, since the government has showed that it either can't or is unwilling to do so, we should defend our own community. The Panther Party took that. The Panther Party took many of those concepts that came from socialism and those revolutionary ideas that Malcolm constantly preached about. The Panther Party took that. The U.S. took the cultural aspect, the Pan-Africanism, the black nationalism. They took those aspects, and those two groups were pitted against each other. And one of the things that Ian, and I know you remember this, War, back in those early days, in those early meetings, we would argue that that was a fallacy, that was a flaw. One of the things he used to constantly stress was us operating from Kwanzaa in the 7 principles of the Nguzo Saba. And many of the Panthers back then had a problem with that, because the U.S. was supposed to be our enemy, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? And those were the things that we was constantly stressing and pushing forward. And when that Black Power ideology, which was essentially Black nationalism, Pan-Africanism, African communalism, Ujamaa and Ujima, those 2 principles of cooperative work and responsibility, and cooperative economics and collective work and responsibility united together, that Afrocentric worldview perspective, although that Black liberation theology, we put all of those things together because we understood that those elements, as the Brother Magnetik called it, the Panther cake, was necessary in order to fuel the people toward liberation. Now those things, ironically, those things were done in that headquarters back in the day, in the mid 90s. Those things, that things were set down in concrete after we had our fights and battles about ideology and finally agreed that we were moving in this particular direction. Now these things happened what we call pre-college, before college actually came into the organization. Now I can honestly say this. That just like you just said, Brother Magnetic, we was watching the Dr. Khalid VHS tape back then, but no YouTube. We were watching VHS tape. And Brother Nahima, how you say the brother's name? I don't want to butcher the brother's name. He raised
Nehemiah, sir.
Nehemiah, I got you. I'm gonna bring you in right after Brother E. But the brother raised his hand. But those things was actually put forth and established pre-college, before Brother Khalid came into the organization. We was watching the Khalid tape. We was listening and studying Khalid. I can honestly say Brother E introduced me to Khalid as far as Khalid's teaching and who Khalid was as a person. I had never heard of Brother Khalid. I think one of the first videos Brother E gave me to watch of Dr. Khalid was The Goddamn White Man. That was the name of one of his speeches.
That's one of my favorites. Yes, sir.
The second one was when he was on Maury Povich. His interview on Maury Povich right after he got put out of the nation. So when Brother Wall and Aaron told us that Dr. Khalid was coming to visit and they was considering bringing the brother into the organization to be the national chairman, we was lit up. It was like, oh, Dr. Khalid, we saw that as a great thing to a certain degree, at least even to meet the brother. Cause we was, we was awestruck with the brother. Right. But when I say all this, now I'm going to get ready to bring this to a close. One of the things, as Brother Wall said, now I'm going to Panther back on Brother Wall, as he said, but he didn't make this connection. Instead of a Panther movement, when Brother Khalid came, it became a Khalid movement. It was almost like a cult of personality that followed Dr. Khalid into the New Black Panther Party, and that's why the brothers say, Brother E specifically, I know that he said that was the worst thing that happened to the party once Brother Khalid came in, because half the members didn't come into the party, even though the chapters grew bigger and we got more chapters and more membership. But as you called it, the Panther membership didn't come into the party. The Khalid movement came into the party. That was more dedicated to the man than they was to the Panther ideology.
Gotcha. Just a real quick question on it. I'm not going to be long, but we know with dialectical materialism, there's positives and negatives. So if that is the negative that he brought, what is the positive that he brought? That's all I want to ask. And wait.
What are the positive aspects that Dr. Khalid brought into the party?
Yes, sir. Let's take the best part. We're going to take the best part.
Well, I would say it go right back to what Psych and E said that was needed, and that was to bring the black national and Afrocentric ideology back into the organization. See, they were them two brothers were working on that, and mind you, let's say this. First off, us three, War, Brother Psych, Brother E, we did not have a Nation of Islam background.
Gotcha.
But they were studying and we was watching his tapes. And so we saw a need for that. Okay? So what he was bringing was what was needed. Okay? And we see that and we acknowledge that. But what we were saying is that what happened was, in regards to what was being brought, it was people seemed like they was more dedicated to the man than they were with the vision of where the man was going to take the organization. You see what I'm saying? So, and that's the issue. It's not what he was bringing. It was, are you honoring the legacy of the Black Panther Party, and are you dedicating your life to the struggle of the black of us serving the community, or is it about Khalid? And I can say that because when Khalid was assassinated and we went to his funeral, all of a sudden, all of these chapters that were there dissipated. When Khalid left, a great percentage of the membership, when he died, a great percentage of the membership left.
Gotcha.
And that's saying something.
For y'all,
you see what I'm saying?
Brother Wall, for y'all turn the conversation, I think we need to give Brother E and Brother Nehemiah a chance to speak their piece right quick before we go. Cause we can go deep into this dialogue.
Right.
Brother E, go ahead. Don't give one of them war rest speeches. And then Brother Nehemiah, you're next.
We don't have audio
Okay.
on you, E.
We don't have audio on
Be
you.
muted, Brother E. Might be muted.
We're gonna go to Brother Nehemiah. Brother E, when you get ready, we're gonna bring you in. Brother Nehemiah, what did you have to say, brother?
Black Power.
Black Power.
Okay.
First, to be amongst you, knowing the contributions that y'all laid that we have today, and we're standing, me a young brother, well, kind of young, standing on the legacy that y'all have set. Just listening and taking in all that I've heard. I was always taught that in a room full of elders, always be quiet and listen for the jewels, and if given the turn to speak, make it one that is as valuable as the conversation. So I have a few questions. One, I would like to ask, as I was told by many, like Elder Ajabu and others, a brother from the Black Panther militia, I was told about the origin of how the new Black Panther Party came about. And I would like to say, well, first I will speak upon it, and then I will ask you, or rather, would you just tell me first? I could speak upon, if you would like me to speak upon what I heard, I would go, but I would just like you to tell me how everything came together and formed as the new Black Panther Party in this day and age.
I think Brother War may be the best. E, have you got your audio together yet?
You tell me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you now. I'm gonna let War answer this question. We're gonna come back to you, E, so stay ready. War, I think it's best. I think you better equipped to answer this question and break it down quickly. So go ahead, War.
Well, I'm not going to speak much on it because we've had a video to where Aaron Michaels, if I'm not mistaken, on the Panther 48 came on and dialogued on that. But just in a brief note, he was working with people like the Ruba Ben Wahad as well as Mike McGee in the background, and they were helping him to formulate it. But before the new Black Panther Party started in Dallas, Texas, it was just the men in black who were basically part of a protest group who worked with John Wiley Price, because Aaron Michaels used to be a radio programmer, basically. And so John Wiley Price, he was in charge of John Wiley Price's Talkback radio show program. And John Wiley Price.
Tell him who John Wiley Price is.
John Wiley Price is a county commissioner in Dallas, Texas.
Yep. And yes, sir.
So the deal is he was very active and instrumental in community activism. And so Aaron Michaels, David Foreman, brother named I'm trying to Keith Anderson, Nathan Anderson, and there was a few other brothers that were part of the original lineup of the Men in Black became the new Black Panther Party. Now, what Aaron Michaels attempted to do is to get the blessings for using the name actually just Black Panther Party, and didn't receive those blessings, and so therefore he just said, okay, well, we're the new Black Panther Party. And one of the things I do want to say, and then I'm just going to kind of leave it at that was emphasized back then, is that we are aware of countering the damage, psychological damage counterintelligence program did to the Black Panther Party. So as a spinoff of that, when we added the word new, it did not mean to replace the Black Panther Party. It had to do with the continuation of the legacy, because the 10-point platform had not been fulfilled. And so the new Black Panther Party wanted to come together and continue the legacy of the Black Panther Party. Now, there was obviously some localized issues that was going on between Aaron Michael, Fahim Mika, and Marvin Crenshaw, which really has nothing to do at all with the legacy that Aaron wanted to continue and contribute to the movement, the Black Panther Party legacy. It had more so to do with some personality stuff that was going on with them, and I'm not going to even get into that. But the deal is Aaron Michaels' goal was to continue the work, period.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Well, I didn't tell you what I know first, but Brother Magnetik, I broke it down. So, between me and you, in confidence, we know how what I said was close to what I've told. I was also told that it was like a collective of Panther organizations, Black Panther Militia, Michael McGee, some original Black Panther Party members, Black Panther Vanguard, or a collective or something like that. I do remember that there was from my research with the local issues, there was a video about it in the legal aspect of dark skinned thin brother. Okay, so that shows a unity coming together in this new day and age. What we have now is a disunity. I understand that you say that there was a Khalid movement, but when you see the sharpness of a brother like Khalid, and when we see what he produced in the nation, because he did produce that, there's tapes, me as well as being in the nation, I had a background about the nation, you have processing. So that's a whole period that you have to go through and learn and have to remember verbatim, not just your prayer. You have in order to get an X, you got your actual facts, you got your student enrollment. That's a part of Supreme Wisdom, beginning of the class. Yep. All right, and then in that, Monday you have a FOI class. Wednesday you have a study class. Tuesday you also have a family day. There's a minister class, but that's not open to the public. Then you have Friday. All right, then you have Saturday, that's NGT GCC. With those classes, you have those think tanks. You have those the educational period. That brother was instrumental to bring helping aid that. There was a time where nobody had the minister title, but he would still be able to be called Minister Malik Rashideen at the moment. And there was this is when there were study groups, when they were coming back. So I would say those that were loyal, or either those that was coming to the nation that were actually well perfected, wouldn't they also bring that same paradigm from the nation into the party? And if they didn't bring that into the new Black Panther Party, what does that say about that fruit and how they ended up going or leading or following this Khalid movement? When we see the type of, again, the men that were trained, the women that were trained by Khalid, these are those who are clear-cut, no nonsense. So we have people that claim to so-called be for Khalid when he passed and they left. What does that mean? Or when he was there and they more so weren't acting in that vein of thought, what does that really say about that crowd or that movement around Khalid? That they really weren't there for the man, they were there for the attraction. When we see certain cults of personality, you have certain examples where the people were doing whatever that person was to a T. There's names I could mention, but I'd rather not. Another, and I know that wasn't a question more say, but I would ask, from these Nation of Islam members that came into the new Black Panther Party, did you see them as being upstanding people, or were they really Nation of Islam members, or were they sympathizers for the movement? Because that's another thing in the 90s, 80s, due to that music content, it was a large following of those who at least sympathized and identified and kind of perpetrated like they was, but they weren't. And I mean, we even see that till today, actually.
Well, I'll to partially answer your question, I would say that it was roughly, and I want to, if I got the number correct, but I would say roughly 30 chapters that were developed literally overnight when Khalid joined as a national chairman of the organization. Wow. These are places that Khalid had already had his roots in. Exactly. And so these are people that again followed him. Now I would say, and we have to draw a distinction here. I would say that when you talk about the internal discipline that a person may have, I would say I did see that with a lot of the members. But the thing about it is, let's just go back to what was going on in Dallas. We were already activists. We were already committed ourselves to serving the people. Whereas a lot of the things that we saw with people that came in with Khalid, and this is not all of them, okay? So I'm not trying to pin this on Khalid at all.
Understand.
But the point being, they were students and they were spiritual studiers. A lot of them weren't already involved in community activism. So Khalid was the kind of person, just like Magnetik already talked about with the gang thing. Khalid was the kind of person that went beyond a lot of what we was seeing with the Nation of Islam in Dallas. And I definitely got to say Dallas, because I don't remember Khalid coming through Dallas when he was in the nation. Maybe he did, but Dallas, the Nation of Islam in Dallas, did not have that connection to the community like they should have had in terms of things going on in the community. There was, you know, police brutality like you have everywhere, gang banging like you have everywhere. The Nation of Islam in Dallas was not really active in that. So there was a void that they were not filling. Now, as an individual, in terms of cleaning yourself up and being a positive personal example and going that route, Nation was all over that, hands down. Some of our members in Dallas came out of the Nation that had nothing to do with Khalid, and they became some crack members. But they joined when we talking about before Khalid, they joined because they wanted to implement that community element. They remained members of the Nation of Islam and contributed and became a member of the New Black Panther Party. It was not about one replaces the other. You see what I mean? The New Black Panther Party, at least as how we had it, was not meant to be your spiritual apparatus or your religious apparatus. And so when Khalid first came in, you had people that maybe were caught up in that wave and did not know how to transition, or should I say keep your Nation of Islam status and keep that religious foundation, and then contribute to the community activism. Because mind you, Khalid was kicked out of the nation.
Correct.
So by him being kicked out of the nation, and you had people that may not have understood that whole dynamic, felt like he was being betrayed, and so they followed him. You see, and so they left behind their spiritual and their religious guidings and principles to follow Khalid into the New Black Panther Party. My personal opinion, again, I'm not with the nation, but I would not say that you should quit the Nation of Islam and come to the New Black Panther Party. If you want to follow Khalid into the New Black Panther Party, you remain Nation of Islam for that element, and then you come into the New Black Panther Party for this element. There was not a contradiction in that. When we talked with Khalid, it was never a contradiction in what you did there and what you do here. The problem come in is when you say what you did there becomes what you do here. And then I'm gonna stop there, and I'm gonna let Brother E go.
Yeah, that I've been saying, y'all just ran over Brother E. Y'all just took over, just took off. So, Brother E, it's on you, brother.
My turn.
You know how Walker get long-winded.
Yeah, talk about he don't like to talk. Whatever. I forgot what I was gonna say now. So see, because wars being all nice and friendly, I'm the more messy cat. I'm the chaos cat. I'm the one that's gonna probably step on everybody's toes, but whatever. One of the going back, and I'm gonna check war, he kind of cleared it up a little bit in this last part where he was talking, but overall, one of the things that was disruptive was the ideology that Khalid brought in. We were in the process of developing an ideology that was process-oriented. Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism are about us connecting to one another, whether it's the immediate Black nationalism or it's the global, those cats you can't see through Pan-Africanism. Black liberation theology for us is about then connecting to something greater than oneself. And in that process, changing your worldview, which is what African-centered thought is, which gets truncated a lot of times, gets left off. And I think part of the understanding of the dynamic that was going on when we talk about, and I said it and I own it and I'll say it again, that Khalid was the worst thing to happen to the party. And part of that is because people think that the Nation of Islam's Black liberation theology, but it's not. It's just not, demonstrably not. Part of the principle, the idea behind Black liberation theology is to change one's perspective, one's relationship with the greater power, to tap into a spiritual essence of oneself, something that's always been essential for African people. The Nation of Islam moves us from dealing with white folks and Christianity and all of that, but they have us replacing that with another foreign ideology, with another foreign set of images. And Islam, God does not look like us. We do not speak our own languages. We're taught yet again to speak someone else's language. So we're redirected, and that's great. That's a good step. It's helpful. It can be beneficial if it's a part of a process. So it was not that we were looked upon or that there was this spiritual thing that people were bringing with them. That would be great. But what people were bringing with them from the nation, including Khalid, was the hierarchy of religion. And if you get right down to it, it's like don't go off on a tangent, because we all talk like War just did at some point in time. But on your vacation, when you were down in a confined space versus being here, being in that confined space, the ability for adherence for those that were wanting to adhere to certain ideologies or things that they were thinking or whatnot, a better way of life, growth and development, was more readily obtained, because even though it was the oppressor's caging, you were still limited in what you could go off on a tangent on what you could do over here, what you could do over there. You had a box that you were dealing with, that you had to work inside of. And that is very much what a religion is. It is a box. If it's productive, if it's quote unquote, and I don't like the word anymore, but progressive and it's developmental, it will take you in, guide you along some steps, and cast you loose on the world. That's not what religion typically does in this reality. It keeps folks in a box for the purpose of maintaining power for those at the top of the hierarchy. And so that's what came in with Khalid. Yes, Khalid brought notoriety. He brought motivation skills. And like Will was saying, we used to have debates about black nationalism, pretty much me and Psych against everybody before Khalid got there. And he kind of brought that element and resuscitated it, gave it a little bit more validity beyond what Psych and I arguing the point could do. However, again, the flip side of it, and I harp on this because so many cats, especially when it comes to religion, give a pass to those who we look up to. People, it took me a long time to acknowledge that Malcolm messed up, that Malcolm did some shit he shouldn't have done. And I don't want to go into that, but we tend to pedestalize folks at the head of religious organizations, and that's exactly what the nation was, and continues to be. And when Khalid came over, he brought those, whether they were well-intentioned or not, they were clouded and they were caught in the religion of the Nation of Islam and were followers of Khalid. And so when they came in, we went from beginning our classes and meetings and whatnot, saying whatever greeting, power to the people, black power, blah, blah, blah. We went from that to in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, da, 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 da. And that's not what it was supposed to be. And so within that context, once Khalid was assassinated, once Khalid was removed, or whoever removed him, there was this power struggle to be at the top of the hierarchy, and that necessitated a maintaining of that rigid religious structure. And so those within the party were no longer, where in Dallas, our thrust, even Brother David, when he was on the show, and I always count Brother David as one of the founding members because he was right there. So correct. Brother David even acknowledged that from its onset, the New Black Panther Party was about evolution, primarily of its membership. When Khalid came, all of that began to stop. And when Khalid was assassinated, it came to a complete stop, because those who took over did not want membership to evolve. They wanted them to maintain their position so that the ones who were taking over control of the party, on the national level anyway, wanted to maintain their position within the party. And the only way they could do that is to keep people in a certain mindset, in a certain frame of reference. And that's why a lot of information was cut off and hidden. But going back to the ideology, we having a paradigm shift, and Brother Magnetik mentioned it, looking at the world through essentially African eyes, looking at the world through our eyes, and that's what African-centered thought is. It's no longer that we are victims, we are now writing the narrative. What was it, you mentioned Rakim, you know, are you the journal or the journalist? Are you eternal or an eternalist?
Eternalist, right.
It was our intent to move people from being an eternalist to being eternal, to move from being journal to being the journalist. And that's what African-centered thought, that movement through Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism and Black liberation theology into that paradigm shift, and that looking at the world as I'm powerful, I can create, I can do, is what our objective was, to get that mind in a certain frame. And when Khalid came in, he froze that ability right there, because now we had a new struggle for power amongst those above me and Syke. Syke and I were drafted into the party by War. War had just been moved up and was made chairman and whatnot. He gave us draft papers, all of that. So we were operating here, whereas cats like Khalid and Aaron and other folks, and even David, were operating on a higher level within this hierarchy that was being created.
Right. So y'all was members, and he brought in a lot of movement people. Sound like, I didn't mean to interrupt, family, but that's what it sounded like. You guys were the real members that did the work. Then he brought in a lot of the movement people, and then they didn't want to fall in and do what the members do. Is that kind of what happened?
Oh, in my opinion, absolutely. The reality of it is, but it's the ideology or it's the structure of the new Black Panther Party from the time Aaron moved to a national level on, was developed by me, Robert, and me. Oh my God, I said Robert, me, War, and Syke. We put that together, and that was one of the things on one of our last few shows. Somebody said something, and it, you know, I tend to be the more emotional one when I talk, and that shit just kind of set me off. It's like, no, we were there. We did this. Our roots were on the ground. We wrote pencil and paper. I got the notes on pieces of paper from 20, 30 years ago that we can pass around. So this is not something that we heard about, read about. No, we did this. This is what we did. And so in that time period, the rest of us, there was no way we could out-debate Khalid, out-fight. I mean, just on the strength of his notoriety, not even just his skill, just because cats are already on his side when you enter into it. So it was a losing battle, and we got arrested right there and took away a lot of our time and energy in fighting these battles on this national level for authority and control that took away from our ability to continue to do work that we were doing.
Yeah. Let me
Brother
just on a
Magnetik got his hand up, so I'm gonna let you go, Brother Magnetik.
Okay, yeah, family, just on a historical level, when I look at like the nation, first I want to say I appreciate what you said, family, because it gives me more context so we can look at this better through the Panther lens, the microscope and the telescope, because we need both to look at this, okay? So when you look at when the nation first formed, there was like, I'm gonna say like 4 elements that came together, just like this, different elements coming together, okay? There was the UNIA people, the Moorish Science Temple people, right? The African Brotherhood people, and then I think there was one other group too of people, I can't remember exactly, but they had the same problems. Because some of the people who were African Brotherhood didn't like the Moorish Science Temple. Some of the Moorish Science Temple or African Brotherhood people didn't like the UNIA people because they were too much liberation theology. And then, a lot of Southern Baptist people. There we go. That's the 4th element. So whenever something is coming together to crystallize into something, you always have these type of things that happen. I think that we came together. I would think that we came together not to argue, but to find the very best part of all of this experience and then make it into something that we can move into the future with, right? And then, but mainly separate the movement, people who don't really want to make a commitment, but want to act like they're part of this, from the membership, and make that a very clear separation, because I'm sure Dr. Khalid probably would have said something else like that, like, hey, you can come to our events, we don't mind if you learn from us, but don't tell people you a part of this, man, and you doing everything but the right thing. You know what I mean? You drinking like a fish, you have no refinement. When you come and present yourself in front of the people, you're the 4 brothers, musty, rusty, dusty, and crusty, all 4 of them. No, unacceptable. Unacceptable. When the Panthers I saw when I was young, they were the sharpest people in the entire community, the men and the women. Word. Their afros was the cleanest, their face was the shinest, their clothes was the most neatly ironed. It was a very impressive demonstration, and these people could do drills better than any military you ever saw. Little kids. It was a very impressive magnetic demonstration. After you see that, something that high level, okay, and it was so high level that the babies could do it as well, both boys and girls. You can't go to nothing else that's a sloppy copy. You see what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. When we move forward, we look at the Panther Party when it came together. It was Core, SNCC, Ram, and some of the people from SCLC, and a lot of the disgruntled members from the NOI. Same thing. They had the same thing. They was trying to put all of this together. And what you kind of have to just take the best parts of each. What's going to happen? We're going to see, like I said, the movement part, the people who don't really want to make the commitment to the best parts of each of those contingents, right? That we're putting together. And then you're going to see the people who are willing to make the commitment. And those people, we're going to be able to do something that has not been done. Something that we call revolutionary, which means if I say I have a revolutionary new product, it means that I'm doing it in a way nobody has done it. That's what we're going to be able to do through this process by us putting down some of the things, you know, that might be not so important, like what we're disagreeing on, and picking up operational model of this. You know what I mean? That's what I'm looking at. And when I look at the number 48, 4 plus 8 is 12. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 is that understanding. That's the best part. So hey, you bring your best part, I bring my best part.
So indeed, brother. We 100% agree with it. Brother Nehemiah has his hand up. Go ahead, brother.
Peace. Yes, just to go back and revisit. I'm understanding again. I don't want it to be confused with Brother E. I definitely didn't think that y'all weren't there. Best believe I know who you are. I'm just not in this just to be in this, and I didn't look. You know, especially the contribution that y'all have gave. I'm listening to it. But the problem, it still seems, is more of a membership problem with the individuals rather than the person. The discussion of him being the worst thing that happened to the new Black Panther Party, y'all were there. You know, that's your opinion, and I can't take away. Shout out to Aaron Michaels as well. The foundation that y'all laid, again, I stand on. You know, whether it's regardless with Malik and Hashim and Malik, and I'm well aware of the issues. But if we go back in the act of Sankofa and look back into the past, we could see this same Panther energy of us kind of, as we look back and see the mistakes we've made, we've seen how Bobby Seale, you know, comments about Huey till this day. We've seen the Huey and the L Ridge footage, them falling out. We see even, you know, many of those that in the LCFO didn't like what Huey did. It's even journalized that Max Stanford himself, when they had developed the Black Panther Party in Berkeley, and that chapter was there. Once Huey and Mark Comfort basically took hold, that they basically dropped out and changed what they were doing because they felt the direction of the Panther was different than its roots. I would like to ask, that's my dissertation of understanding of what y'all are saying. I would say, what would you like to see today? The Panther Party that you were in then, and the Panther Party that you were seeing under the leadership of Malik Zulu Shabazz, under Hashim, which, you know, again, on the legacy of Khalid, but through the founders of Dallas, Aaron Michaels and yourselves. What do you want to see today?
Well, let me say this, and then I don't know if I was expecting to see Warhand come up, because I thought War would have something to say on that. But let me say this, and then I'm gonna pass it to War, because I feel like that's his baby. That's his number one thing. But let me say this. Again, I'm gonna panther back on a few things other people said, and then I'm gonna talk about kind of answer the brother's question a little bit. We don't necessarily want to see the party that we was in 20-some years ago, because again, it's all about evolution. And yes, when we was putting in the work, one of the reasons I believe, and Brother Walker, correct me if I'm wrong, that he drafted me and Ian to the party when he did is because I think that War saw what E and I could bring to the party, and he along with us, connecting with us, because what E number one thing that he brought to the party, ironically, Brother Magnetik and Brother E has never met in life, but when Brother Magnetik talked about the Panther Cape, that's ironically what E brought to the New Black Panther Party. Brother E brought the conversation of Pan-Africanism, African-centered thought, Black nationalism, Black liberation theology, these things to the party, and said, this is the proper Panther ideology. This is the way a Panther is supposed to think in order to lead the people to freedom. And I brought the organizational structure to the party. If you've ever seen the mechanism structure, or even, matter of fact, to get an example of what Brother Wall was just saying a while ago about that, or was it E saying it, about their religious structure and about how the leadership mantle was being passed on like a king leaves the crown to his son, so to speak. That was not the Panther structure. The Panther structure, when I was writing the Panther organizational structure, it was the membership, the basic general membership that voted and made a chairman a chairman. The chairman then chose his central committee. The central committee had no ability to affect a chairman's position. It was the people, the membership, that affect the chairman's position. The chairman then could affect the position of every member of the central committee. And the central committee is who voted on the membership, the average person, the day-to-day worker that walked into the party. They are the ones who voted on that person. So if you look at these three, you can see how one could not affect the other, so to speak. You could see this, like let me explain it like this. The membership chose a chairman. The chairman could not kick out a member of the party. The chairman couldn't do it. The member had to be brought up on charges to the central committee. The central committee voted and could kick a member out. The chairman didn't have the power to do it. The chairman could remove any member of the central committee because the central committee was the chairman's extension. The chairman had the power to do that, not the membership. See how that worked? The membership was voted on by the central committee, so the membership could not affect the central committee. The chairman placed that central committee, and kind of like our president places a Supreme Court judge in position. That's what the chairman did with the central committee. And the central committee could not affect the chairman's position in the party. Only the membership could affect that position. And see, that's the circle that it was supposed to go to keep everybody in check. That's what was supposed to happen. And that changed over time. Now, I left, Brother E called it my vacation. I went on vacation for 17 calendar years in 2001, right after we went to Brother Khalid's funeral. Right after we did the grave site, went and saw Malcolm's grave. This was like a beautiful moment to me. And probably a couple of weeks later, I would go on vacation and wouldn't touch ground again until 2018. And when I walked out, I was hearing things while I was down there, because I was still teaching, I was still organizing based off those Panther principles that I learned before I went. And I was hearing things that didn't add up to me, that didn't make sense. I was thinking the people that was bringing these tales to me didn't know what they was talking about. And when I walked out of my vacation status, when I walked out of the Gulag in 2018 and started looking around and doing my research, and I'm seeing all these Panther splinters and all these divisions, I was completely disappointed. I didn't like where the party went because it didn't make sense to me. It was not what we was organizing before I left. Before I left, we was creating a structure, we was putting in place an ideology, and those things was working in the Dallas chapter. Those things was creating the discipline that Brother Magnetik talks about. Those things was creating, and like I said, I cannot sit up and lie and say that we didn't get these concepts and ideas from studying Malcolm, studying Dr. Khalid. We studied the nation. We studied Marcus Garvey. We studied a lot of people and a lot of concepts in order to bring the stuff that we brought to the party. And then Brother Ward sat down with what we brought, and he built around it and created structures, manuals, and things of this nature. He made it applicable to build in Panther chapters and start spreading or attempting to spread these to chapters around the country. This is basically what I would call the legacy of the Panther 48. This is what we was focusing and working on in our desire to evolve the Panther. This is what we was focusing on. And what we would like to see now, and this is why we created the Panther 48 and the entire YouTube channel, is we would like to see brothers that claim this Panther mantle back in concert with one another. Not all these different things, but back in concert, moving in line with one another. One of the things that I consistently stressed when I was in the party, and this is why they made me the chief of staff, it was discipline, was focus, was dedication to work. That's one of the major things I expressed. And one of the things when I was on my vacation, and any of the brothers, because we done had a few on here, any of the brothers watching can come in the comments and tell if I'm lying. One of the things that I stressed was brothers to be on point. If brother wasn't on point, if brother came out of that cell to come to one of our study groups and he had his toothbrush in his mouth, I tell him, go back, brother, and come back tomorrow and try it again. You know, brothers had to be focused. One of the things that Brother E stressed to the point of even angering certain members was understanding cultural relevance and that Pan-Africanism and that Black nationalist ideology. If anywhere you hear that or see that coming out of a Panther that had this formation and the new Black Panther Party, anytime you hear it coming from their lips, even if they don't know it, it's based off the influence that Brother E brought into the new Black Panther Party, because it wasn't there at first. Brother E influenced that into the party. And with that, I'm gonna pass it to War. I hope you still remember the question that the brother asked, War. He asked, where would we like to see the Panther going? Do we want to see it where we were? What do we think about it now? And essentially get your idea on that. And I know you can answer that because I've asked you that a million times.
Well, I even want to go back to something that, again, inspired me about Comrade Magnetik when he jumped on and said refinement. The deal is and when one of the things that made me leave the new Black Panther Party in 2006 had to do with the fact that I was tasked with training, finally tasked with being able to train the membership on the things that we have been trying to train them on. But in the course of doing so, I was immediately shut down because all of a sudden I'm giving people enough information to start looking beyond the national and being able to say, hey, I need to be held accountable in my local. See, one of the things that we spoke on that Brother E and Syke are talking about in regards to some of the conflict with Khalid was that we was about local autonomy, which basically meant, like, and it kind of goes in the reason why Syke broke that structure down. It goes into the fact that we were in the process of developing and working toward implementing the proper way that the Dallas needed to do in order to be effective in its own city. And a lot of that ended up getting shut down. And so the point is, we believe that if you are truly a Panther, then you're supposed to be accountable for things that are happening in your city. Period. If your city is suffering, that means as a Panther chapter, you ain't doing your job. Right. That element got lost. Well, let me say this. With Khalid, it got put on hold. After Khalid, it got lost. And it more or less became a national pool to pull from to create, protest here or protest there to show numbers. Right, so a lot of what was, so going back to what we would like to see, Panthers holding themselves accountable for community empowerment, for local things that need to happen to do the work in your city, not be on standby and on hold. And like one of the things that I did not like about the original Black Power manual, I don't know how it looks now, was that it would say, call your national, call your national, call your national. Our position was, if you can't figure out a problem, then you need to figure it out amongst your city. You got people in your city that can figure this stuff out. Recruit the people that know the stuff. Going back to E and Syke, when they got drafted, and they use that word drafted strongly because I saw something that was lacking in the organization. They had it. Came in and created a firestorm because people, for the most part, didn't think they was ready for change. But change is inevitable and change is required. So knowing that we need this stuff, we need to bring this into the structure, that's what we want. A lot of times what we saw happening, and this is just over the dynamic, this is after Khalid, is that people were fighting to keep their positions simply because they wanted their position, not because they knew enough or knew the right stuff to stay in that position. And so therefore they wanted to hold any and suppress people that actually knew more so that they can be needed in that position. So it became more about a position than it did about learning and being held accountable in your city. So what we want to see happen is we want local chapters, going back to one thing that did get mentioned earlier, functional local chapter. I created an entire document talking about what it takes out of a functional local chapter. One of the things that we saw was in order to be a functional local chapter, that don't mean there's three cats calling themselves a Panther chapter. You ain't gonna be just 3 people, 4 people and call yourself a Panther chapter. So from that standpoint, if you're going to be a functional chapter, there's a certain central committee positions that have to be in place, a certain amount of membership that have to be in place, a certain amount of work that has to be being done in that city, certain programs that have to be implemented. So it's basically saying that you are doing what you are supposed to do in your community, and from that standpoint, now you are becoming a functional chapter. So what we want to see back into the structured period is functioning chapters. That's it, functioning chapters, which require a proper training regimen for that somebody has to go through before they even can say that they're a Panther. The way we do it in San Diego, and I'm just going to leave it at that. There is a 6-week training that you have to go through. First, you get screened to make sure you can even go through that. Once you go through that 6-week training, then you have to commit yourself to a certain amount of community service hours before you can even get a beret. Most of the membership take between 6 months to a year to even earn a beret. You see what I'm saying? So you a member, but you ain't got a beret yet. You can't earn that beret. And so if a person is not truly committed to doing the community work, they'll fall off before they even get a beret. You see, and so now we're already talking a year in before somebody can even say that they're a member. That kind of thing left the organization long ago. If you was willing to pay dues, you was a member. If you was willing to be loyal and be yes sir, yes ma'am, you was a member. And it left. And that's it.
And that's what I would say. That's part of the issue. Again, I completely agree with Brother Nehemiah. Part of the effect, the Khalid effect, was that we blew up way too quickly. All of a sudden, as he said, overnight, we had all of these chapters. Those of us, again, it was only essentially 3 of us that were actually doing the work. We're not equipped to run across the country and attempt to babysit all of these various chapters attempting to come up on in the same note. That notoriety and that blowing up, because of the structure that he was bringing with him, centralized or attempted to centralize power and authority, which is the complete opposite of our mindset. Our mindset is local autonomy. That's not what the National wanted. They wanted to develop a God, I hate it, a pyramid where they sat on top and everybody reported up to them. And so, yes, it's absolutely the masses of the people are the ones who have failed. And there was a question some time ago on the show, was the problem, I forget what the actual question was, but under the answer was, we can't blame, like Malcolm. They were saying that Malcolm failed because he couldn't do this and da-da-da-da-da. Khalid didn't fail, Malcolm didn't fail, none of them failed. The masses of the people failed them because it's up to the masses of the people to move this into whatever direction it's going to go. The flip side of that is the masses of the people, especially today, with the mindsets of people being what they are, and War has his finger more on the pulse of that sort of thing than Syke and I, either one of us, do. But we all are acutely aware of the fact that the mindset of people is, well, for one thing, is immediate gratification. So you're going to want to go out and protest because you get your rocks off, because you get hyped. It's like going to church. It's like going to hear Farrakhan speak or anybody else speak. You get hyped and, woo, I did something, and think you've actually done something, when in reality you just gotten a buzz, you got your high on. So the masses of people, because we are constantly cultivated to buy into that immediate gratification and feeling good right now, we don't want to put in the work. Number 2, the masses of the people are not going to be leadership material. The masses of the people will always be sheep and always have to be a part of a constant cultivation and moving forward by those who do understand what's going on. And we, again, like kind of like Ward was saying, all that type of stuff was lost. Ward finally had a chance to train some folks, when in reality, that's what we were trying to do from day one. You get pushback from cats, and we've actually had membership that were there that we knew for years that told us, I'm not reading any books by any dead people. And these were cats that were actually supposed to be there supporting it, but that's the mindset of the masses of the people. The masses of the people don't want to do the work, especially, again, and I stress, especially again today, because of the immediate gratification, the laziness, the buy into it right now, all of that type of stuff that goes on. That's the mindset that we bring into the party, and we have to be aware of that the masses of the people, though they are the ones who are responsible for moving this vehicle forward, as in doing the footwork and doing the legwork, they are not ready for it. They are not prepared for it. They may never be. So we have to fill in what we can fill in and keep it pushing forward. Go ahead, brother.
Oh, we got Brother Magnetic Nick.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I just wanted to say, I definitely appreciate your expression, family, what you shared. Definitely, absolutely. And what that brings to my mind is something that Brother Malik brought to me, which was the Panther University. And what I mean when I say that, family, we're looking at all of these instructors, professors who came to teach us on different subjects. Some of them taught multiple subjects. Some of them just taught one subject, right? But if we look at them as the professor, somebody who's a learned man or woman in this subject, and don't try to put all the other labels up on them as, oh, they're a leader and they're the messiah, da-da-da. But no. Let's categorize what the man did. And what he does is what he is, right? Because what it do is what it is. If it don't do nothing, it's nothing. But what it does is really what it is, right? Okay, so Dr. Khalid, he was a liberation theology dude. That's one of his best points. Yes, he was a nationalist. Yes, he was a Pan-Africanist. But more than anything, the man came from a theological background. So I would say he's our Pan-Africanist professor and our liberation theology professor. Now, if I was to take somebody like Brother France Fanon, he's our psychology professor. And I don't try to squeeze no more out of that. Just let him, he's our psychology professor. Now, if you ever been to college, none of the professors really get along or agree, right or wrong. They all have say stuff about each other, talk bad about each other, argue, etc. Now, if I'm stupid, I'm gonna get caught up in their arguments and their disagreements, right? And maybe how their philosophies beat each other up. But if I'm intelligent, I'll take them all and incorporate them into myself and become a better person. The shortcomings I see in them, I will not replicate them. Nah, I'm gonna take the very best part. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time and my money being in college, because I'm getting into the interpersonal things that's happening between these professors, which honestly really has nothing to do with me. And I could never change or affect. That's how I look at the movement. You know, I categorize all these guys as having different skills. And I look at that skill and I say, how can I find that skill within myself and multiply that? You know what I mean? And the more that we're able to find these things and multiply them, the opposite of multiplication is division. So our opponent is using division on us. And the only way we're gonna do away with his division is by using multiplication. Multiplication of what? The nationalism is idea, Black nationalism is idea, Black liberation theology, locking it in, Pan-Africanism, multiplying these things, and it cancels out a lot of the divisionary stuff that has been injected through the cracks of the cracker. Just saying.
True indeed. I want to say this, and then Brother E wanted to come in with a comment. And I want the listening audience to understand this. We do not hate or dislike Khalid. We love Khalid.
Damn it.
Khalid, that what you were about to say? Khalid actually loved me and Brother E. Whenever he came to town, he always asked about me and Brother E. And he didn't like War too much.
Yeah, it's true.
No,
Facts.
him and War used to bump heads a little bit. And,
I heard that. I
remember
that was
a story. There was a story where Dr. Khalid didn't like the fact that War's uniform was wrinkled. Oh, War, I was going to ask you speak on that, War. But he didn't like the fact that War's uniform was wrinkled. And, he got on War because War, you got to understand, and War would never say this about himself, so I'm going to say it. and I hope it don't make the brother blush. But you got to understand, especially back then, War, while he may not have been the highest ranking Panther in the organization, he was probably one of the most respected Panthers in the organization. And if he had ambition to try to get high rank, he probably would have been a national chairman or something like that. But I know, knowing him, I know he shied away from that. I think War is more the type of person that would try to teach, educate, and build the next chairman than he would to be trying to be the next chairman. You know, no understanding War the way I think that I understand the brother. But I think that the reason why Dr. Khalid stayed on top of War and stayed grinding down on War, because he understood the image that War had and the respect that he got from other Panthers. And he knew that, as Brother Magnetik said, that his doctorate was in sociology. He understood people. He was a master at that. And he understood that whatever way that War presented himself would be copied by many of the brothers and sisters who actually looked up to War and the ideology that War was bringing. Another thing that I want to say, and I'm gonna pass it on. Another thing that I want to say when we talk about Huey P. Newton. Now, here's the thing about Huey, and I was watching your video last week, Brother Magnetik. For a long time, it took me and E a long time, because we stayed on Huey. And I'm talking about from a negative point of view. People hear me nowadays saying that Huey P. Newton is one of my favorite people, because I started studying his ideology, the way he thought, and the things that he taught about revolutionary philosophy. When I studied that, that's where I learned intercommunalism and things of that nature, dialectism and things of that nature from studying Huey. But at first, I'm gonna admit this truth. When I first joined the party, I couldn't study Huey, because I come from the streets. You know, my culture is the street culture, and I just simply could not respect the drug addict. So I couldn't even study Huey. I wouldn't even get a man a chance. It wasn't until later, when I was on vacation, that I actually started studying his ideals. I started studying his ideals, and even in reading Revolutionary Suicide, I say this because I don't pedestalize Huey. I just love his philosophy. But even when reading Revolutionary Suicide and the way he broke down the differences between revolutionary suicide and reactionary suicide, I instantly seen that Huey himself committed reactionary suicide. He didn't respond properly to all the stress and the weight that was coming on him for being who he was. He didn't respond properly, and we can't deny that. You know, that undeniable, indisputable fact, proof, and truth. We cannot deny that. You know, but Huey's ideals and those concepts was a beautiful thing, and those things is what enlivened the party. It what gave life, a spirit, in the original meaning of the word, and the etymological meaning of the word breath, a life to the party. It's what gave that. And many of the party members were quoting Huey. Huey wasn't a great speaker. He was good at breaking ideas down. He wasn't a great speaker at all. But other people would take the ideas that Huey would teach, Fred Hampton, Bobby Seale, and many of them other brothers and sisters, and they would speak it eloquently. So I wanted to build on that. E, did I take all your thunder from you? Did you have something else that you could add on?
I took a little bit, but I think I got a little bit of thunder. Yeah, and I was going to say the same thing. We're not on some old hate college shit. That's some punk shit. That's bullshit. When college would come to town, I was the cat. And I've said this before on other shows, that our approach to somebody coming in, and an assassin coming in and shooting somebody, particularly somebody like Khalid, was that you get the first shot, and then the rest of the chapter falls in and takes care of you. So your first shot better be your best absolute shot. There was one cat whose sole purpose was to stand between Khalid and somebody with a gun to take that bullet. And that was me. The only thing I had that post when he would come to town was a bulletproof vest. No pistol, no knife, nothing. A bulletproof vest and, ow, that's all I got. So, and this was an honor for me. I liked doing it. I enjoyed doing it. I volunteered to go and do it because I loved Khalid. I had been watching Khalid since, Khalid hit Donahue way back in the day, and watching his tapes and whatnot. And whenever Khalid would come to town, there were 2 or 3 times he'd hug me and damn near break my ribs. Because, Khalid was a big dude. I'm I'm very thin, lanky compared to this cat. So he would damn near break my ribs when he would hug me. But the difference is we don't pedestalize him, because at the same time, there was at least one time, you know, when you have your ranks and you're supposed to be standing in the order, in a line, in formation, you know, one person, you know, down the line, facing this way, and you don't allow anybody to walk in between you and the next soldier by you. So when Khalid attempted to do this one time, essentially break the ranks and walk between us when we were in our formation, I threw my arm up and blocked him and kept him from coming through. And others got pissed off and upset because why, you know, the Khalidites, why, you can't do that to him, he's Khalid, rah, 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 rah. In my head, he was another member of the party, and he had to follow the rules like everybody else. But most of the membership didn't see it that way. And so that's one of the reasons we would clash. So it's not that we didn't love Khalid and value Khalid and want Khalid to be around and be a part of it and all of that. It's just that we understand that he was just a man, like the rest of us. He had ideas and abilities. We had ideas and abilities. We didn't see him as somebody to be raised up on a pedestal. We saw him as an equal with equal skills in some areas. But at the same time, we had better than equal skills in some other areas. And had we been able to develop that dynamic, because like Syke said, he would ask about us. We had a little bit of a personal relationship. I remember one night after we did something, boy, you may remember this better, because, you know, I don't remember shit a lot of times. But we took him to, I guess, a safe house. I ain't gonna get into the business and whatnot, but he had met somebody and they was going to the safe house and chilling and whatnot. And so we were there at the door. You know, and I don't know, I was kind of irritated when they shut the door and we had to leave. I guess I thought we was gonna play dominoes or something after, I don't know. But it was, you know, our interaction was very just family oriented. We was just cats that had gone and done some stuff and now we riding back. So we had that personal relationship. Khalid, again, Syke and I, he asked about us whenever he came to town, because I think in part because he saw me and Syke as pushing back. And he saw that element that he carried, you know, he was rebellious, period. Whatever you want to say about it, he was rebellious. And he saw us being, he called the New Black Panther, Dallas chapter, the New Black Panther Party, the most rebellious chapter of the most rebellious organization in the country. Certainly, he saw me and Syke as the most rebellious members of the most rebellious chapter of the most rebellious organization. So it was never any type of animosity between us. We loved him, he loved us. But at the same time, we're men.
Right.
And that's how we're gonna stand. We stood like that toe-to-toe with Khalid. We stood like that toe-to-toe with all the various types of sheriffs and cops and whatnot. When we went to Jasper, from the, you know, local to the national level, we stood with them toe-to-toe the same way, because that's what men do. And that's what the party is supposed to be developing, is manhood within the party and the community.
Definitely got some. I would like to say, family, it sounds like we're all on the same page. We all have seen something, okay? But we want to see something better out of what we see, and we have higher expectations than what we see presently, right? And, you know, I think we're all in different parts of the country, so we can really make an impact, man. If we say, hey, this is the standard we're going to agree upon, right? Make sure the people that we're dealing with, whom we say are members, not the movement, but the members, the people who we can hold accountable, make sure they're holding that standard up physically, ideologically, and most importantly with their energy, y'all. You know what I mean when I say their energy? I wanted to make sure that when I spoke to you brothers, I came in the right energy. So I had to collect myself, because one of the greatest impressions that I think the world has saw is the messenger's energy, his spirit, not just his words, not just his thoughts, but his spirit. He was called by many the little lamb, and his spirit in itself disarmed you from wanting to talk crazy or think something negative once you really observed his spirit, irregardless of the words or the thoughts that you had saw from him. His spirit. Dr. Khalid had this same spirit, and it's a spirit that opens your heart up. You know what I mean? To where if you on some gangsterism, if you on some BS, this type of spirit can open you up and make you abandon that and really listen and put that other stuff down. I think that it's important that we have that spirit, y'all, you know, amongst us, and we'll be able to reach over boundaries that's put, you know, because sometimes you hear somebody, they have the right words, you know, they're thinking a certain type of way, but their energy just turns you off and they're like, And I think that has to do with the trauma that a lot of us have, movement, collective trauma. The collective trauma that we experience in the movement that we need to disarm from. That way, your trauma and my trauma are not battling each other. Me and you can never really get to meet each other. And if you throw 2, 3 more people in there, now all of our traumas are battling each other, and it's a big mess. So, you know, we have to, you know, at some point, look at some of these collective traumas, take them apart. I know some people, some groups, some psychologists, Black psychologists from the movement who can work with us on this, to walk us through this so we can see the trauma and not get mad at each other. I can see Dr. Khalid has some traumas in his life that he might have carried into the movement. He was working on and struggling with. I can see Minister Farrakhan has some traumas that maybe he was working on and struggling with. I can see all of us having these traumas because it was a collective trauma that we all experienced. Transatlantic slave trade, and then from that, all the other ones that were compounded onto it. Now, if we think that we're going to be able to work together collectively and get, you know, good results and not master these traumas, and there not be explosions in the middle of what we're doing, but we're trying to suppress this trauma, I don't think that's a very realistic way of looking at that, you know? Dr. Bobby Wright, France Fanon, Sister Frances Cress Wilson, they gave us plenty of rules, tools, and jewels, man, to be able to sort out. Because we want the Panther subconscious too. We don't want just the Panther conscious. We want the Panther subconscious, because in your kind of unconscious moves, certain things come out, your nuances come out. We want the Panther stuff to go all the way into the subconscious, and Dr. Khalid was kind of discussing a lot of that by some of the things he dealt with and the way he discussed it and the way he came. He showed us that. We wanted to get into the subconscious of our people worldwide, and I think to a degree it has. We wanted to go a little bit deeper. What do I mean by that? We look at the African continent, we got cookie cracker Christianity, Islam, everything but the right Islam, family, moving through it, okay? So with the right spirit and the right information and the right research, we can fix all of that. And using liberation theology, using their book to show them their self in their book, right? Like somebody showed us, right? I think we can affect that. But as long as we're trying to think that the politics, just the politics and the political structure is going to change it, and you don't have to go in and remove that white God, the cookie cracker Christianity, and the pale Arab Islam, this plague in Africa and plaguing our people. That's why Haiti, the devil was able to come back in, because the Catholic Church, the reactionary aspects of the Catholic Church, because there's some pretty thorough parts of it, they didn't get that out. So that black God that they picked up and they said they put down the white God was never run out. It was still there. So all it had to do is be reactivated. This was going on in Africa. This was going on in our communities. At one time, the black church was a movement center where it produced people like Martin Luther King and people like, what's the brother in New York? Clayton Powell. You know what I mean? Some thoroughbred people. And a lot of our people went to freedom school in these churches. Now, it's all, what is it? Prosperity preaching, right? Yeah. So they've done this to Islam, they've done it to Christianity, and then when we look at the so-called Hebrew movement, we see a lot of the same thing in it. Prosperity preaching, family. With the right liberation theology, I think we can take a lot of our people out of these boxes. If we don't deal with that, they come into our movement and they still have these psychological hangups, because we have to remember the religion of the devil. Let me just say this, yo. It has a lot of psychology and mythology in it, so which is trickery. And there's things in it that it puts in you that you do not see. And if you don't go into that with liberation theology and flip that concept, they bring all that into your movement, and all the stuff y'all was talking about, you know what I'm saying, is a result of that, you know. Not fully emptying out the canteen and cleaning out the canteen. So there's some remnants of what was in there before. And I think it's just a result. I think, you know, if we could just agree on proper training, tactics, agree on that, Whoever is in the East do that, whoever in the South do that, whoever in the West Coast do that, Midwest, we all agree on it. Eventually, what it was create, y'all know the 100th monkey syndrome? Y'all know that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Once that hundreds, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that speaks to that subconscious you was talking about.
Yes,
automatically
sir.
It comes into play.
Exactly. And then just by us doing it collectively, consecutively, habitually, right? And them, they just fall in line because this becomes the best method of doing what? Panther work. You know, we taking all the best notes from all the greats and putting them all together. I'm listening to y'all. Y'all giving me feedback from the South, from the East, from the West. I'm giving you feedback from the Northwest and all the information we're getting from our international contacts. And we're able to put together an operational version of this vehicle that has never been seen before. That's what I mean when I say the new Black Panther Party. Because it was already revolutionary in its conception, but if you can revolutionize that, now that's something, man.
True indeed, true indeed. We're getting ready. Basically, we passed our time 5 minutes. I think War might have some last words before we close out. And no, brother, that was beautiful. Matter of fact, if I didn't know War, I would say that's what we're gonna close on with those statements you just made, because you made a great point. But Brother War, you got anything to say before we get ready to close out?
Now, I would just simply gonna make sure I did say something. I may have said it before in one of our past videos to let y'all know in regards to the relationship me and Khalid had. Before he passed away, we did iron out a lot of our issues. In fact, one of the unfortunate things I say to people, which I can't, I still fight myself over the timing of it, is that the last discussion me and him actually had, which was the same night I heard that he had died, was that he wanted me to move to Atlanta to help be a part of the actual school, Panther training school that he wanted to implement. So literally, the week, I would say the week this comrade got killed, the idea of a Panther school got brought up. Once he made his transition, I never heard of that again. But he actually asked me to move to Atlanta because that's where he was out of at the time, and he actually was having African theology classes in Atlanta. That didn't make it across all of the other chapters, but some of the same stuff we talking about that the organization was suffering from, he was starting that baby in Atlanta. Okay, so that was actually taking place there, and he wanted to establish the national training headquarters. Now, mind you, this was a training headquarters. We're not saying the national headquarters of the new Black Panther Party. We're talking about the training headquarters. So that was something that he actually said that we was going to implement. And he personally called me up to be a part of that. So don't get it twisted. We bumped heads simply because of some of the things, the way I was, my personality, and the way his personality was. So, but it was always a powerful level of respect. That's
True
all
indeed.
I got.
True indeed. And with that, y'all, we're going to get ready to close out. I think this was a beautiful podcast. I greatly appreciate our visitors that came on. They added a lot of value to the conversation, a lot of dialogue. And the last thing that Brother Magnetik said, I think needs to be thought about, listened to, heard, and meditated on, because that will produce something truly revolutionary, that real new Black Panther Party. With that, this was your Panther 48. I give thanks to Brother Magnetik for coming on, Brother Nehemiah for coming on. Hopefully y'all enjoyed what you heard today. Subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and share the information. Peace and power.